Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time to join with us today. We're happy to bring you a new webinar from Rio SEO, really looking at debunking the top local SEO misconceptions. This is a big thing that comes across our table quite a bit, especially with the panelists on today's call. But just a few housekeeping items, just as we go through this webinar. Know that this is live, informational, meant to be a lot of fun. So feel free to use the chat and Q&A directly within the system. That'll allow us to field your calls or your questions. But then on top of that, we're also going to live stream this across LinkedIn, as well as any live tweeting on Twitter as well. So follow at Rio_SEO or follow the hashtag Rio webinar. That'll allow you to keep up with the conversation and see as we go through these different ones today. Now, at the end of this, we are going to schedule an email sent out to anybody that joined with a recording of the webinar. So look for that if you were unable to join or have to pop off early. So as with that, we're seeing here, you can also do that chat just to make sure that you use that. If it comes in and you have a comment or any position on one of the myths, definitely feel free to let us know. So let's kind of jump into the meat of it. So SEO continues to change, as we understand. It's evolving over time quite rapidly, especially with everything going on in the world. So with that change also comes a lot of misinformation, confusion. What are we going to do with our SEO, especially at the local level? So this is how the myths are born. So we kind of see that, kind of seed across and poison the well in some cases. So there's a lot of them out there, but we're going to cover roughly around like 16 of them today. So today we're joined by a great panelist team, a lot of SEO gurus that I've worked with for quite some time, know through the grapevines as well. Hopefully Steve Wiedemann will join us here shortly. But with that, we want to share the most common SEO myths live and then hear from our panelists. So my name is Tyler Ludwig, Director of Enterprise Solutions here at Rio SEO, really focusing in search, organic, as well as listings. And then we're also joined by Jason Brown. He's the SEO manager, as well as a consumer advocate. Loves talking reviews, loves talking local. So he's going to be in here, especially he's a founder of Review Fraud, right? So we can talk about that. And then we also have Chad Klingensmith from the Rio SEO team. He's our senior SEO analyst and strategist. So he really knows the nitty gritty. When I have questions, I go to him. So it really helps. And then Steve, if he's able to join us, is from the Wiedemann Consulting Group and is a senior search analyst or strategist that we worked with in the past as well. So my background, I've been here at Rio for around 10 years, really focused on the listings and organic side of the business. And then followed by that, I'd love to have maybe Chad, you start forth with your intro.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Chad Klingensmith, and really looking forward to speaking today in this webinar. I've been involved with SEO for 15 years, and I've been with Rio for 7 years, actually going on 8 years now. And we're looking forward to really debunking a lot of myths that are very common, just to help clear up the fog a bit about some misconceptions today. Thanks, Tyler.
Perfect. Jason.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Brown, review specialist. I see a lot of misconceptions when it comes to what's going to move the SEO needle. I always like to try and debunk them as much as possible. So I'm looking forward to getting after it and hopefully debunking some of these misconceptions of local search.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, everybody. So let's start with number one as we start thinking about this. So fact or fiction? Can you optimize your Google business profile listing for SEO for specific keywords?
Fiction.
Fact.
All right, we got a mixed bag on that one. Any insights on that one, Chad or Jason?
So for the Google business profile itself, the only attribute that will have an impact on keyword rankings will be the Google business profile name. That in itself. However, they're optimizing other attributes for, say, keywords, say the description or the specialties or services that go into that listing. That in itself is not the same as optimizing a website. When it comes to optimizing like title tags, meta descriptions, etc., for certain keywords, that's not how Google business profile works. But Jason might have a few thoughts on this. I'm really curious to hear.
Sure. Yeah, like Chad said, the one thing that's going to determine your Google business profile is your name. And so what we notice is a lot of people will rebrand either change your Secretary of State filing or get a DBA to add keywords into their business name, and that's going to help you to rank. So that's how you can definitely optimize your business profile for keywords. Also, we do notice that keywords in the reviews themselves have made a boost in ranking. So there's two things that can be done. When you're asking for reviews and you're coaching people to say, hey, what services did you get from us? Where did we service you? Or where were we located? People have come up with creative and clever ways to get keywords into the reviews. And so those are the two things that I've seen that have helped boost local rankings.
And on that point, for the review side, that was interesting. So when you think of, are you talking that to optimize would more of the review from the end consumer, or is it more around the reply of the business itself?
No, just the review from the consumer. So trying to add keywords in your review replies doesn't do anything. But if a consumer is saying, my dishwasher broke and I called and I went looking for a plumber, a plumber in San Diego per se, and they got that into the review, then you would start showing up for San Diego terms and plumbing terms.
Great. So yeah, so that thinks of kind of proactive things you can do from a brand perspective of maybe when you ask for reviews or try and collect reviews, is maybe push them into what type of service that they got to maybe be a little bit more informational. All right, great. Next one. All right, adding keywords to your GBP business description will help improve your ranking. I think we kind of covered that on the first one. Kind of know where we're going with that one. Do you guys have any extra color you want to put on that?
There's one thing I want to say. Although it's not a good idea, the keyword stuff for a Google business profile description, it can obviously look unnatural. However, if you're speaking to your crowd with these keywords and it's written naturally, that in itself might encourage more engagement on the listing itself. So I wouldn't be the same to say as optimizing a title tag or content on a landing page for a normal website. But however, you want that description to be relevant for what people are looking for. So just as long as those keywords are natural, it's not a bad thing, but in itself, it doesn't make your listing rank higher.
And one other note and caveat is if your business profile gets suspended, you can be denied a reinstatement if your business description is over spammy or keyword stuffing or making claims that you're not allowed to. So it is supposed to be, look, this is who we are. Mom and pop business, been in business for 40 plus years, serving the San Gabriel Valley, all that's good. But when you start, talking about all the services and cities that you incorporate, then that's when Google, looks at it as being outside of compliance and can ding you for it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think that just comes back to any brand marketing strategies, right? Is, you really want to think of, kind of what's your tagline, but be more impactful to a user experience than trying to game the system. So I think that's a great topic there. Next one. Perfect. So this one kind of tails in on those first two a little bit, right? Using keywords in the owner review responses to impact. I kind of asked that question already, but Jason, if you want to get a little bit more in depth on that one, feel free.
Yeah, I've seen people test it and it doesn't do anything to move the needle. Now, remember what you want to do with your review reply is you want to thank that consumer that left a positive review, or for a negative review, you're trying to show your professional side. So adding a bunch of keywords that don't matter to that actual review itself isn't going to come across looking like a genuine business. It's going to come across looking pretty spammy, and people are going to be turned off by it. This is your review replies is your opportunity to put your best foot forward and to show that you really are a truly genuine and caring business. And if you're not doing that and you're looking like you're just trying to, add a lot of fluff, people are going to see that as disingenuous.
Right. And on that topic a little bit too is, when it comes down, have you seen negative impact, right, of the spammy responses, from review owners, right?
I haven't seen that, but I do know that I have seen a lot of cases where people have been turned off by consumer replies, and will call a business out for it in their negative review and say, look, I saw how the business responded to all the reviews, and I don't feel like they're being genuine. So you can actually get called out for that by a consumer, and that's going to do a lot more harm than good.
Chad, do you have anything else to add on that one?
I completely agree. Again, it should be written naturally. I mean, and if it's written naturally, whatever the topic matter will be for your company, whatever product or service you might be offering, those keywords should come up naturally in the response, but not intentionally written in, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Perfect. Next one. All right. Paying for Google Ads can positively impact rankings. Two fictions. Explain your answer.
So this is an old theory that came up for a long time. I remember hearing about this in the late 2000s. You're thinking, well, if we're paying Google money, they're going to reward us for organic SEO rankings as well. And there has been no credible studies to show that. I mean, and obviously, if Google was caught doing that favor for some of their bigger customers on Google Ads, I would imagine that would and that got outed, that wouldn't look good. So I haven't heard any legitimate studies or examples or case studies where that's ever happened. I don't know if Jason has either.
Yeah, no, the thing is GBP, PPC, YouTube, they're all completely siloed departments. They don't work well with each other. They don't talk to each other. They don't communicate with each other. They don't have any impact on anything. So, and I see people do it, when they get their, they get a negative review, or they get their business profile suspended. They sit there and say, well, I'm not going to pay money, or why am I paying for ads when I've got this negative review, or I've got my business suspended? They're completely unrelated. Remember, Google Business Profile is a free service. The Google team sees it as a complete standalone free service. So no matter what you're doing with paid ads, whether you're doing ads on YouTube, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So there's not going to be any benefit to, dumping a bunch of money into Google Ads. It's not going to have any impact on your rankings whatsoever.
All right. Yeah, and I think that comes into being more effective as far as how you use paid search data, right? For listings, it's pretty straightforward where you're at, where you're positioned, and information is correct. And then, like we always say too, is as much of those points is like ads is that separate lane highway to get you up first or closer to the top, but more in a paid inclusion spot where the listing side is more evergreen and takes a little bit more time. All right, next one. All right. I think we all know the answer to this one, but you only need to respond to negative reviews. I see this happen a lot. Jason.
No, you need to be responding to all of your reviews. However, I do tell people, if you haven't done a review reply strategy, then yes, start with your negative reviews first. Go, remember, consumers are only reading reviews up to about 3 months old and discount anything after that. So I say work on your negative reviews first, and then start working on your positive reviews. But no, consumers want to see a business that's actually engaging with their customers. Your customers took time to leave you a review. The least you can do is reply with something like, "Thank you so much. We really appreciate that." Because then you're going to show that you actually are paying attention. You actually are caring. Because if somebody has a negative experience, they know that leaving a negative review is not going to have any impact on you as a business owner, because you really, truly just don't care.
Exactly.
I completely agree. Yep. Always engage any review.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, as Jason mentioned, like it could be a glowing review, right? But that 5 minutes that you take, it could be 10 seconds just to respond with anything, right? At least to show some impact on that business definitely helps there. All right, next one. All right, citations are more important than backlinks. Double fiction again. Chad.
Citations were very important, I would say maybe 8-10 years ago. And I'm not saying they're still important now as a foundational boost for your local SEO program, just to make sure everything is accurate across the aggregators and local. So I don't think they should be completely ignored, but honestly, they've kind of taken a back seat on the priority ranking factors. And backlinks are actually the number 2 ranking factor for local results, according to the White Spark local ranking factors, which is considered a very reputable study, and at number 1 for organic. So without a doubt, backlinks are extremely important. They should be looked into. There's a lot of different ways to curate those and develop those. We'll probably get into that later. But citations is no longer one of the top priorities. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mike Blumenthal was the first one to come out 2 years ago at local U Denver, and he said that NAP is dead. And I think we've listened to, you need to have your NAP consistent. Well, no, because Google has gotten a lot smarter to be able to identify different properties about a business. And you can also use call tracking numbers, right, on different platforms. So if you want to track your calls from Yelp, you want to track your calls from Facebook, from your Google business profile, you can do that. You definitely want to get your initial set of citations set up. Make sure that you've got, Bing, Apple Maps, Yahoo, Yelp, Facebook, Google, because it's going to be the difference between showing up for a knowledge panel when somebody's searching for your business and triggering that autocomplete that Google's been doing. But yeah, do you need to go out and buy 100,000 backlink or citations? No, that you don't need to do that anymore. You can definitely get away from it. And I had somebody say, well, what do I do if my business is located inside another business? Isn't that going to cause issues with NAP consistency? And I show them an example of the hotel in Las Vegas where they're sharing the same address as 2 restaurants inside. So, there's not that NAP inconsistency that we've been so thinking about as being like the Bible. And it's not the same anymore. You can share addresses with another business and have no issues.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just fundamentally sound that you need to have that living out there in some consistent fashion, right? So that it can be picked up in more of an automated fashion that it is today as well. All right. Ranking for a specific query is the number 1 goal of SEO. I hope that's fiction for both of you.
Remember, what's the end goal of optimizing a site? Is to bring more people to your site and get more conversions for whatever you need, whether that be phone calls, people visiting your store, if you're selling a product, getting more sales, just the obvious. So traffic is always going to be the gold standard, quality traffic at that. With that said, if you rank higher for relevant high volumes phrases, obviously there's a good chance you're just going to get more traffic. That's just an indicator. So look at keyword rankings as as a KPI, but not the number 1 KPI. And sometimes you might see a shakeup in a month where one month all of a sudden your rankings drop, and sometimes some clients are like, well, what's going on here? And I said, let's see what's going on here. Let's just calm down and keep an eye on traffic. Because if the traffic drops too, that's a different story. I mean, there might be something else going on. But obviously having more relevant rankings that are really boosting up for whatever your listing or your website one is going to be is usually going to coincide with higher traffic, but it should not be the one focus, one all be all. And some folks still fixate on that a bit. And I understand maybe 15 years ago it might be a different story, but but nowadays it's much more dynamic than that. And traffic is number 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think people lose sight of thinking about I need to rank number 1 and only ranking number 1. And I've seen people shoot themselves in the foot. I've seen people rank number 1 for terms that they thought that they wanted, and all they ended up getting was just like really bad leads. I know a company that had to rank number 1 for Google Business Profile, or back then was Google My Business support. Well, all they kept getting was calls from people thinking that they were actually Google wanting free help. And so they weren't actually able to convert on those leads. So I think you need to be very careful as to what you're trying to do. If you're trying to just rank for a keyword, you can rank for it. But if you can't convert on it and you're not getting the leads you want, then you shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's, how do you fill the funnel and how much is quality, right? So quality versus quantity in that specific case, because those keywords have to speak to the brand and what is the end goal for the consumer that the brand wants, right? So it can't just be everything. All right. Number 8. Content length doesn't matter.
A fiction and a fact. It's a fiction. And a fact. This one's a mix. So, but I'll let Jason go ahead and start out on that.
Gary said at PubCon one year, and this always struck me as answer the question, answer the query. Like, how long does it take to boil an egg? About 2.5 to 3 minutes, right? And people were like, well, yeah, but the different type of water or the altitude, can have a bearing, or the type of pot or the type of stove. So if you talk about all those things, he says, okay, yeah, that's fine. But how long does it really impact the results of boiling that egg? He's like, well, it could be anywhere from 2.5 to 3 minutes. He's like, that's it. That's the answer. And I think we're now seeing, this whole thing where, you need 2,000 words to rank for queries. And I was like, no, you don't. And I think we've seen it with the recipe sites. Somebody wants a recipe, they're going to go to a recipe site to get that recipe. They don't want to know that, you were raised on a farm as a poor kid and learned how to churn your own butter. Like, none of that matters if I want to learn how to cook pasta. So I think answer the query of what they want. The more you try and make the content longer and stick a bunch of nonsense keywords into it, especially in local. I've seen where oversaturating content for cannibalizing it can actually have a negative ranking impact instead of that positive ranking impact.
Thanks, Jason. I completely agree that relevancy and well-written content is the most important thing. If you're going to get 300 words of very well-written content to answer a question versus 500 words of gobbledygook, 300 words is going to perform better. However, with that said, having more additional content that is relevant, where say you're speaking about a local business in a store, and say you're selling hardware parts, and you give information about your cross streets, what you're next to, and then you start putting more details in questions and answer form, or even talking about your products and services in depth. That length, as long as it's relevant, is going to help you rank higher, not only for SERP results where people are getting answers to questions, but also long tail keywords, which we'll talk about later, because you're mentioning the additional products and services that your store offers. It's okay to touch upon that. With that said, make sure that content's well written. But if it's longer and well written too, then that could actually be more relevant for a lot of different phrases and help give you a boost. So content length it's got an asterisk on it. Make sure that content length is well written content length that's relevant for you're going to. Don't give some non-relevant information about when your store was founded, and well, maybe that's important, but just talking about irrelevant things related to your business. It has to be related to the keywords in general that people are looking for, as long as it's irrelevant to that matter.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, long form content is good for about us pages and things of that nature. But when we think about local, it's being relevant with, hey, we're located next to this landmark, but offer, the hardware tools, right? Things of that nature as well. All right, density of your target keywords are important for on-page body content. Give me 1,000 keywords. Why not?
we had one of those SEO companies, try and take one of our clients, and they said that our keyword density wasn't at the optimum level, and that we needed to increase our keyword density. And so we did it. We hit their target. We turned it over before we turned it over to our client. I mean, I got to give credit to my favorite writer, Martin Henderson. I mean, he nailed it out of the park, and it was the worst piece of content we've ever heard. I had belly aches of laughter. I mean, it hurt just listening to the Joint Chiropractic in Pasadena, California is your chiropractor if you're needing chiropractic care. All of our chiropractors are well trained in chiropractic care. So if you're looking for a chiropractor, come to the Joint Chiropractic in Pasadena, California for all your chiropractic needs. I mean, it was just the most ridiculous thing. And that was just a snippet of it. We had to actually do this for 1,000 words to hit that keyword density. And it was the worst thing that I've ever seen. We shared it with corporate, and corporate's like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Stick with what you want. So yeah, read your content. If it just sounds that ridiculous, everybody else is going to look at it and just pass. So no, don't worry about the keyword density. Turn off the use tool. Don't go for those green lights, yellow lights, red lights. Like, don't even care about that. That stuff is not what's gonna rank you, and it doesn't matter. But if you try and impress these SEO tools, that's all you're gonna do, is you're gonna be writing for the tools and not for your consumers.
And I agree with what Jason says. Keyword density, it's a real old school SEO tactic. I mean, we're talking 2006 SEO tactics here. The Google algorithm has gotten so smart that it understands semantics. It understands how keywords are related. It knows that oranges and orange juice are related. And you don't need to get, verbatim have these keyword targets in your content itself. Sometimes it's relevant to mention that verbatim if it sounds natural, but write naturally first. Always write natural. And don't worry about mentioning these keywords too much. There's been studies that have shown that these keywords haven't been mentioned at all, but they were so semantically relevant for what the topic was. These pages were ranking high anyway. So just write naturally for your embodied content.
Right. Next one. All right, duplicate content. Lovely buzzword. Do they penalize? Fictions. Chad, go for it.
So this has been a debate for a long time. It's very common that you will have, say, a website that's got templated content or repeat content across several pages, giving us some basic information about a store chain, etc. And at Rio, we really try to localize this to make this more unique. Google doesn't quote unquote penalize duplicate content. It doesn't give you a warning in Google Search Console that you have too many duplicate content pages or something like that. With that said, it's not very helpful either. You want to have unique content on your different landing pages, because that gives more differentiation. That's more relevant to what the landing page is. So don't worry about getting in trouble if you have too much duplicate content, but look at the upside. What can you do if you do generate unique content for these landing pages?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, there is no penalty in the Google Search Console for duplicate content. And so people think, well, I have duplicate content, I'm going to get penalized. You're not, but after a while, Google's going to not show some of that content. Now, when it comes to multi-location businesses, there's different ways that you can, become more unique with your content. So for one of our clients, we have 5 boilerplates of content that we use. But what makes each location differently is we talk about the staff and the doctors that are there. We also have first-party reviews that are pulled in. So just because 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs are almost identical, the difference is we talk about the staff, and we have the first-party reviews to make each page unique. And Google's gonna look at that and see that each page is unique. It is uniquely different, and they've never penalized. In fact, before the Possum update, I was able to get all 3 of our clients ranking in the map pack for our main money keyword term, which was almost unheard of. And so I've looked at too many examples where you don't get penalized for having this quote unquote duplicate content or content that's similar. Plus, you may have a couple of paragraphs that are boilerplate across every single page, and that's still not going to hurt you or hinder your rankings.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
A good rule of thumb is make sure 30% of your content's unique. That'd be a good rule of thumb to go by. So,
There we go. I was going to ask for that takeaway.
Yep.
All right. Keyword clusters. Can they help impact ranking for multiple keywords? Fact or fiction?
Well, fact.
2 facts. All right. Chad, tell us
So
why.
a keyword cluster would be a group of phrases that are relevant where you're doing keyword research and they're topically all the same. You're talking about hammers, sledgehammers, specialty hammers for concrete or whatever. If you're doing research for a hardware store and you have a product page offering these different hammers you have available at your home improvement store. This gives you an idea overall, and this is going to tie into long tail keywords, which are keywords that are 3 words or longer that don't get as much search volume, but yet are very relevant. So it's a good idea to have an idea what the topic should be for what you're optimizing your site for, as opposed to just 1 or 2 what we call head keywords. The head keyword would be just the phrase hammer, which gets tons of searches every month. However, if you want to it's a better idea to get more into the specialties where we're talking about sledgehammers or mini hammers or hammers that you use for putting your hardware floors, etc. And that's usually discussed in your content. And this ties in with keyword clusters. So.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's really much more that needs to be said, but yeah, I mean, you're going to have your money term, or your main term, and you're going to have variations of it, So like when I'm doing, online reviews, what am I talking about? I'm going to be talking about fake reviews. I'm going to be talking about positive reviews, negative reviews, how to dispute a review, how to reply to a review. Like there's all sorts of things that I can talk about with those clusters that are all going to be centrally tied into reviews. And the same thing when you're talking about local, you're going to be talking about, you're going to be talking about, the services that you offer, and you may have a couple services, you may have multiple services, but you're going to be talking about the various packages that you offer. And as long as you're doing it in that unique way, then it's definitely going to help you to rank for multiple keywords or the longer tail keywords.
Yeah, and I think it's important there too. It kind of goes with that last kind of fact or fiction myth, as well as with the content strategy, is how can you fit additional content, whether it be FAQs, questions, and then use unique things about that business, even though they might all be the same, but some restaurants offer catering and some don't, right? Or some do, more corporate events. So I think mixing those in there definitely help you as well. All right, next one. All right, keywords with less than 1,000 monthly page views are worthless.
Yeah, that's fiction for sure.
I'd say if one page view converts, it's not necessarily worthless, right?
Exactly. Yeah, if you're looking just for sheer volume, then then you're not going to care about that. But if it's a keyword that converts nicely and you get like 1 click a month, that 1 click is definitely worth it.
And keywords that usually get less than these amount of page views are usually what we call long tail. And again, long tail phrases are 3 words or longer. They're more specialized and they're getting more prevalent because voice search is coming out and people are asking questions. What time's the store open near me? Does this store sell this kind of cement for my back patio, etc.? And when people search for these phrases, they know exactly what they want. And if your store or your business offers this service or product, chances are they're going to find what they're looking for. There's a better chance they're going to convert. So they're very important.
Right. Yeah, I think it's how you look at it, right? Is, if you have that long tail conversation or that content, it's not going to be the top of mind for everybody using that long tail, right? So core keywords are probably the more volume, whereas those long tail are going to be a little bit less, but you can still make them convert nicely. All right. Domain age does not matter for ranking. Chad's a little iffy.
Yeah.
So
domain age for, especially when you're launching a new business or website, is going to be important. Back in the day, Google has a thing called the sandbox, where if you launched a new domain that you just bought GoDaddy or whatever, you wouldn't really ranked very well for at least 3 months, maybe 6 months, and this was a way for them to fight spam. So older domains inherently would rank better. And then I saw new data and new reports come out saying that's not as big as a deal as it used to be. But what really matters is this domain, how much domain equity it has built up. Are there backlinks occurring naturally across the internet that are pointing towards it? And if they are pointing to them, is it improving domain equity? Is it is the more backlinks that come into this domain? Obviously, Google sees that is something that's more established. So it does matter. But with that said, if you were to take a really old domain that's 5 years old and you got one that's brand new, it's debatable whether or not that's going to have a major impact. I don't know if Jason has anything to say about that, but if you can, when it comes down to it, if you can get an older domain, please stick with it. But I don't think it's in the world if you get to get a brand new one. So.
Yeah, I think it's a lot different now. Like we don't have that sandbox that we used to have. But when it comes to local SEO, you can make a quick tweak on a website and see the impacts within an hour or within a day. So I don't think that domain age is that relevant and important anymore, especially when it comes to local SEO, since we know that Google business profiles are based upon where you're located. But yeah, if you were to go and create a brand new website for your business, create your GBP, get it verified, have your link, and have that page well optimized, chances are you could outrank somebody that's been around a lot longer just from being more well optimized than somebody else.
Yeah, and I think making updates too, right? That old domain that hasn't updated in 5 years, right, is going to get beat by the new content coming in by others. At 14. Internal backlinks aren't important.
Sure on that.
Both fictions. All right, Chad.
Like I was mentioned earlier, backlinks are very powerful. Number 2 ranking signal for local, number 1 for organic. And that includes internal backlinks as well. So one opportunity I often see is how the navigation breadcrumb structure is set up on a website. Obviously, you have your domain page, then you have a category page, which is usually a state for a local website, then a city, then the location itself. And in this hierarchy for this navigation, you'll have words like, we'll say, home, California, San Diego, and then you'll have something that'll say 2223 Encinitas Street or something like that. And that anchor text you have that last link that goes to that location page can be optimized for anchor keywords. So I would say maybe we should optimize to say home improvement store at this street, something like that. You can mold the internal links. Be careful not to overdo it. That's been done as well, but there are opportunities internally on your site to improve your backlinks, and they do make a difference, a very big difference if they're done right.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen Joy Hawkins do several studies where all she did was just add one internal backlink from a pretty popular page or post to a category page of a website for a service business, and all of a sudden, the rankings just shot up with just that one internal backlink. So, yeah, there is value to it. Like Chad said, don't overdo it. If you start overdoing it, then you run the risk of devaluing the work that you're doing. But yeah, as long as you're doing it, organically, so that it's not looking like you're just trying to keyword stuff that anchor text. Yeah, it'll definitely work for you.
Yeah, and I think it might, even from a strategy standpoint, help you create more content, right? At the end of the day, if I find that one page is really driving up, but we want to expand on that into that relevant or additional keywords, why not add some flair and move it on there, and kind of like a part series as well. Yeah. Next question. All right. It's okay to change your GBP name to include keywords.
Oh, Jason hit on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on this one, and you're your business profile name is supposed to match your real world name. So as long as you've got your Secretary of State showing that name, or you got a DBA showing that name, then you can definitely get your keywords in there. The one caveat that I've seen where this doesn't work as well is in the lawyer space. And what I see, especially in the personal injury space, they'll go and they'll brand themselves for a personal injury attorney, and they end up only ranking for attorney and not for lawyer. So you kind of can, pigeonhole yourself that way. And with the latest Google update we saw in November, Google's kind of moved away from devaluing business name, keyword stuffing in business names. So I've seen people do, HVAC contractor Tampa. Well, Google's not rewarding them with those map pack rankings or with that knowledge panel. Instead, what they're doing is they're showing results for HVAC companies in Tampa, and so people have actually are now starting to shoot themselves in the foot by maximizing on that strategy.
And I agree with what Jason said. Keyword spamming and the Google Business Profile names has been around for a long time, and honestly, it was pretty bad. There's been a lot of complaints about it. Google wasn't really taking much action to address that. I mean, Google's cracked down a lot on other spamming issues, such as spammy content, especially spammy backlinks. But for a long, long time, you see people just outright cheating. Putting in these fake Google Business Profile names, the keywords, and again, rewarded for it, ranking really well. I knew a guy, I didn't know him personally, but I heard about a guy that, created thousands, maybe tens of thousands of fake listings just for insurance boost, that were just fake listings with just the something about home insurance in Tampa or something like that. And there wasn't even a website associated with it. He managed to get them verified, and it was all set up to get phone call leads. And for a long time, it was kind of irritating because you see this guy everywhere setting up these fake listings. And I'm glad Google's finally taking action to address this. The keywords still matter without a doubt, but we talked about that earlier. That's one thing you can do to change your relevancy if you're listing for a certain keyword push. But it's starting to get devalued. I'm not sure what Google's going to do next, but making a radical change to your Google Business Profile, just do that at your own caution, because you don't know what Google's going to say. They might decide to suspend you, or worse, if you decide to do some funny stuff.
And how many times do you want to change your business name legally?
Yeah.
How about that? All right, next one. All right, structured data or schema markup isn't that important. I hope this is all fiction. Chad.
So structured data basically allows the Google crawler to better comprehend attributes on your web page, and it's recommended to help generate rich results. Rich results are anything you've seen in search results that are not just a standard title and description. I'm talking about review stars, I'm talking about answer boxes, all that good stuff. And those rich results get higher click-through rates. Structured data in itself is debatably not an SEO signal. It won't help you rank higher. But with that said, it will help your web pages stand out more in the search results, which will get you more volume coming through higher click-through rates. So it's very important. And when it's done right, it's great. I mean, it's not visible to the end user. It's in the coding, and if it's done right, there's really no downside to doing this. So.
Yeah, I've seen examples where businesses have completely overlooked their local schema and actually had it set incorrectly. They were telling basically Google that all of their Facebook pages were for their main corporate location and not for their individual locations. And so that's definitely one of the things that I've gone through and try to help address and fix. Plus, if you upload FAQ schema, it's super easy to add it. It could be the difference between your competitor showing up for that FAQ schema for people asking questions or you taking their spot. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of advantages to it. So it definitely is important, but remember, you know, the actual SEO, search engine optimization, is optimizing for the search results, right? So for the Google crawlers to be able to better understand what our web pages are about, to make their jobs easier, so that way we can, you know, preferably rank better.
Yeah, and I think just to tail on that one too is making sure that you use the correct schema markup classification for your business, right? There is a bunch of variations, you know, is it a dentist, doctor, and so forth, right? So making sure that those are in there properly. Perfect. And I did have one question come in back to that domain question. So for domain age, what if you were to keep the older domain and use redirects to a new domain?
I think that's a great idea for many reasons. For one, especially if it's a 301 redirect, you want to make sure it's a permanent one, so it passes off the domain equity. That will help the new domain obtain some of that old domain equity from the old domain. And the other reason is if there's some backlinks on out there on the internet that are pointing to your old domain, at least the user gets redirected to your new domain. So please do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you definitely want that throw and redirect, because yes, there are all those old backlinks that are pointing to it, you know, with anchor text. But I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't want to, you know, rebrand with a brand new website URL, and I would just rather redesign the website and keep that original one, you know, there. Because I mean, you're going to end up paying for, you know, for a domain for something you're just 301 redirecting, you know, so you're going to be spending, you know, that money. If you're going to be spending that money on that old domain, why not just use it and rebrand with it?
Great. Perfect. Perfect. All right. That wraps up our top 16 myths for this webinar. And just want to thank the panelists, Chad, Jason, really appreciate your time. I know I get on the fence with some of these, even doing it as long as I have, but that's why I look to professionals like yourself. So for everybody on the call, just really thank you. And if anybody has any questions, marketing will definitely be reaching out with a live recording of this or the recording of it itself. And then if you need to follow up with any questions, reach out to marketing@rioseo.com. Follow each one of these guys on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you need be. They're all fun and then have different things going for them as well. So once again, thank you, Chad, Jason, really appreciate it. And then once again, we'll be sending out the recording, and our next webinar is actually on Thursday, August 25th, where we're going to talk about mastering local holiday marketing. So seasonal success for 2022. So thanks again for everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.